Hey Charlotte,
Hi, Katie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Things are a little crazy right now, but it's nice to see your face and hopefully again in person pretty soon.
Yes, still kicking, still here, hopefully in person. Usually you see me like this with a mask.
Exactly. It's hard to tell who people are
It
when
is.
they have
Oh,
their masks on. I always stop on the street and people say, Katie, and I'm like, who is that? I have to figure out who everyone is really quick with a mask.
yes.
But it's nice to see you and excited to talk to you a little bit today about who you are and just a little bit about marketing during COVID and making plans for, you know, what you're going to put out on social.
Well, thank you for
Um, so, do you want to tell me who you are?
Yes. So my name is Charlotte Guyton, and I own Bard and Baker Board Game Cafe in downtown Troy, New York. We are located in the historic Troy Record Building at 501 Broadway in the News Apartments. And we opened Bard and Baker in October 2018. So we're not quite 2 years old yet, but we are the first and only board game cafe in the Capital District, which is very exciting.
It's such a different thing to see in this area. And how did you come up with wanting to do a board game cafe? I mean, it's different for the area, so.
Yeah, it was a really interesting road for me. My background is in hospitality. I went to school for it. I trained in food and beverage. I always just really loved serving people in the community. I always loved having guests. So my entire career, I worked in fine dining, Forbes five-star Relay and Chateau properties, white glove service, all the way down to managing casual cafes and bars throughout the Capital District, most recently Peck's Arcade and Lucas Confectionery. And while I was working for Clark House Hospitality, my partner Brian and I started visiting board game cafes around the country. We just really liked the concept. We found it very interesting. We're big nerds ourselves, so it was always something fun to immerse ourselves in when we were visiting different cities. And we loved the disconnect from devices and seeing people connect face to face in person with one another, trying to solve a problem, trying to beat a baddie. It was always just really beautiful, and the space was filled with laughter instead of the clinking of forks and knives on plates. But one thing that we found when we went to each of these board game cafes is that it was really lacking in hospitality. You had some really hardcore nerds who knew a lot about the board games and could teach you any of the board games that were on their walls. But it lacked that really personal touch, and that was something that's always been so special to me. And I've really grown to love Troy. I was a military brat growing up, so I moved all around, went to school in the Adirondacks, and slowly just kind of made my way downstate. And really
A lot
fell.
of people do, right?
Yeah, exactly. We all just kind of migrate to Troy. And I really loved Troy. There were so many food and beverage establishments, but there was a lack in casual entertainment, especially those who are not of drinking age. Obviously, Troy is a big college town with RPI right up the hill. And we just wanted to create a place that was family friendly for all ages, that didn't require drinking, but it could if you wanted. That was just really fun for all. And that's exactly what it became. And then so much more. My expectations were just completely smashed. It's become a really wonderful place in the community. And particular to COVID right now, there is no reason why a board game cafe should be surviving. No reason at all. Our entire business model is bringing people together face to face with strangers and all touching things. And you can't do that right now. So it's really our guests and community that has decided that we deserve to survive. So we're trying to make them proud, and we're trying to get back to that point where we can create a gathering space for them again.
That's great. I mean, I think branding has so much to do with that and just you exuding your brand, right? Like you are your brand.
Yes,
Um, and I mean, from the image behind you, I mean, this is what you love, right?
it is. This is not my personal, I'm not at home. This is not my personal wall, although I
Yeah.
have a wide selection. This is Bard and Baker.
I've been to a couple board game cafes outside of your own, or I guess gaming cafes. Because I grew up in Seattle. My brother's really into gaming. So, I've been to a couple places with him, and I feel like each place has its own identity.
Yes.
Was, I mean, you talked about, wanting to make sure that you were family friendly, that you were kind of, offering a little bit of each thing so that you can make sure that you're serving, the broad community that's going to be part of Bard and
Mhm.
Baker. Can you talk a little bit about how you built your brand?
Sure, absolutely. So from the very beginning, social media was very important. Social media is really a driving force in marketing right now, especially for first-time business owners, small business owners. It's relatively cheap marketing material, and it has a really wide range. You can really reach a large number of people and really kind of target those specific guests that you're looking for. So prior to opening Bard and Baker, it was very important for us to build up the hype. And I will say that that is one thing that I learned from some of my the previous owners that I had worked for small businesses was build hype, get them excited. You're nothing without the hype. So kind of getting people interested in a board game cafe, but also introducing them to what the concept was. Because we were the first one in the Capital District, a lot of people weren't very familiar with it. They thought that we were maybe going to be video games, or that we would just have the classics like Monopoly, Jenga, and Connect Four. They didn't really expect this huge, expansive selection of games. So it was really important to kind of provide that little educational aspect to our guests while we were getting them interested in it. After that, it just kind of solely became, I mean, it's always been us, myself and my partner, Brian. We are the Bard and the Baker, which is where the name comes from. Bard is a classic fantasy archetype, the traveling storyteller, entertainer. That's me. I love hospitality. I love hosting people. I love creating a story. And my partner, Brian, is a baker. That one's pretty self-explanatory. So the brand kind of revolved around that, being the Bard, entertaining people with games, giving them something to get excited about, and then also really tying in this beautiful comfort food aspect. Because when you think about board games, most people think less about the newer European style games. They think more of classic Americana, games they played as a child. You want mac and cheese. You want mac and cheese when you're playing those games. You want cozy things. You want things that make your heart and your tummy and your brain feel full. And that's kind of just what we've decided to focus on our social media. The brand over time has developed a lot. We've learned a lot with our guests on what works and what doesn't. I definitely analyze each of the posts that I put out, see which ones are more popular. As with any small business, people are really tied to the people who run it. So they really want to see your face. They want to know that they are supporting people and less, a faceless brand. So we definitely have seen more engagement with posts about our wonderful staff, more posts about really good looking food and drinks. So we've kind of tailored it around that. Apart from being just a board game cafe, that kind of creates it as a destination gaming spot. So we wanted to make it more of a neighborhood joint as well. So we have hosted a number of different events in store, paint your own puzzles with little nerdy themes, decorate your own cookies for the holidays, Dungeons and Dragons, one-shot campaigns for people to kind of dip their toes in the water and get a feel of it. We try to keep people engaged, and the whole core of hospitality is just really being there for people. So just letting them know that we are there for them and they have a place to come home to that's outside of their home. That's really been kind of our whole strategic model. But I will say the board games make a beautiful backdrop for all of the food and drinks.
I mean, during COVID, I mean, now we're, have kind of moved through the phases at this point. While we were in pause, I mean, what was that strategy like for you? Because I know not being able to allow people into your space, I mean, you really rely on social media to tell people what's going on and to keep them interested. I mean, what was your strategy around, during coronavirus pause?
That's a great question. And I think that when you ask other business owners this question, a lot of people are going to have very similar answers, but you're going to see very different kind of specifics to their industry of how they handled it. First and foremost, it was scary. It was just absolutely terrifying. I think we all kind of saw the build up to it and we all handled it very differently. For restaurants, we saw the decrease in seating capacity by 50%. That right there basically had just crippled us. We are not a restaurant that relies on quick turnover times to get people in and out of their seats like a traditional food and beverage establishment. We really want people to come and stay and play for 4, 5, 6 hours. And when we cut our seating capacity from 50 to 25, that really ultimately just halves our revenue potential. So we were very scared about that. We had, I mean, mostly me. I had a really big cry, a couple of really big cries.
I think a lot of people had them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was scary. It
Yeah.
was scary. And then when we got the full shutdown order, I kind of had my cries out of my system at that point in time. And it was more of a, all right, well, what are we going to do? We've got to pivot. We've got to figure it out. We can't sit idle. This thing is moving rapidly. It's changing constantly. We have not only just a community to support, but we had 11 staff members that we needed to find a way to create workable hours for them. The thought of laying off all 11 of our staff was soul crushing. Because we worked really hard to create jobs. We're a small business. We opened in 2018. We had 3 staff members when we opened. We were less than 2 years old. We worked our way up to 11. We were really proud of that. And the volume warranted it. But when we had to shut down for takeout and delivery, instantly the number of hands that were needed was decreased. So we were very scared about that. But we immediately tried to figure out what are we good at? Well, we're good at food, we're good at drinks, and we're good at board games. We're good at making people happy. So let's really highlight on those aspects right now. Everyone, this whole community was interconnected with little threads. Once you remove that human interaction, everybody is now isolated. And they're really craving that interaction with people, with brands, with literally anyone, because they're going crazy at home. They're losing their minds. It's lonely, it's depressing, it's isolating. We want to put some joy back in the world and let people know that they're not alone. So that was a big part of it as well. Our social media took a pivot to really thanking people, letting them know that we were so incredibly grateful for deciding that we matter and that our staff matters, thanking them for those orders. We really highlighted our food and beverage program. I've watched a lot of webinars through SCORE and the Restaurant Association, really kind of learning what other people are doing and talking to small business owners. And while a lot of people were paring down their menu and focusing on a few core things, we actually decided to expand our menu by an additional 50%. Wow. It resulted in a lot of extra labor for myself and Brian. We were doing 7 days a week. We increased our hours. We just wanted to be there for people in any way that they needed, whether it was Monday through Sunday, whether it was early in the morning or late at night, whether they wanted mac and cheese or a salad or bottled cocktails. We just really wanted to be there for them. And so increasing our options is really honestly what set us apart and kept people interested. We had that conversation where if we pare down to, doing mac and cheese and sandwiches, you're going to want that once every other week, right? But if you have a menu that is diversified enough, you keep getting people coming back for more, and you also get in new guests, which we found we have gotten a lot of. We actually have a ton of new guests that we can't wait to meet once all of this is over. They send us sweet little messages through Melio and Grubhub and over the phone. That didn't know about us before the shutdown, and they needed to kind of expand their boundaries for ordering food.
Definitely.
So for COVID, we really increased our options. We did have to pare down staff, unfortunately. And then we actually developed a board game home rental delivery program so that people can enjoy a selection of our games at home. Now we have over 750 games, and not all of those can be easily sanitized or disinfected. They have paper pieces. They have paper scoreboards, things like that. So we actually went through every single game, determined which ones could easily be submerged, sprayed, wiped down, entirely disinfected and sanitized in between plays. And we ended up with about a selection of 100. So not quite our expansive selection, but it's been nice. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think, people needed, like you said, needed that interaction. And it was nice that you could really look at what are the pieces of my business that I want to show, that I'm good at, that other people will enjoy. That's, it's great to be able to look internally and say, what can I offer during this time?
Absolutely.
How has your marketing changed as kind of things have evolved? Are you still doing some of the programs and the expanded menu, or have things changed a bit?
Yeah, so we're with phase 3, we were allowed to reopen indoor dining with 50% seating capacity. We actually decided to not reopen with phase 3 because of the high contact aspect of the board games, and with our pared down staff, we just wouldn't have the physical manpower in order to make sure that everything is taken care of appropriately. And our takeout and delivery has become very strong, to the point that we have actually bought extra coolers that we're housing in the middle of our dining room right now to handle the extra prep load that we have had to do. So it's not cohesive with our business model to open up just yet. We're going to wait a little bit longer before we can reopen.
Yeah.
But marketing, as we're kind of as we started moving into these phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, the constant communication was even more important. While we were on pause, everybody is just sitting in limbo, right? So they're interested, they're consuming social media, they're consuming content, they're ordering from you. But as things start to change, things are starting also to change in their mind. They're deciding who they're going to spend their money on. They're going to decide where they're going to visit next, who's going to be reopening. And you're starting to see your core guests kind of, go on the outskirts and try different things. So we've definitely seen a downturn in revenue since other people have been able to open their dining rooms and guests can go elsewhere. So we've really tried to highlight those items on our menu that actually have the highest profit margins for us.
Oh, great.
We've really kind of analyzed what our food costs are, trimming down wherever we can to remain sustainable, really hitting those alcohol sales hard, a lot harder than when we were open, actually. We tried not to highlight alcohol too much because we wanted to be family friendly, but alcohol has been a really big driving force for us since the SLA has allowed us to do bottled cocktails to go. So really highlighting that has not increased our revenue, but it's increased our profit from the items that we were making. And another big part about it has been educating our guests on how it's most helpful to us for them to help us. Everybody wants to know. They want to know how they can help. Is it gift certificates? Is it food and drinks? Is it just dropping a pile of money on the inside of the door and running away? All of those things are great.
Yeah.
But educating our guests on what is more helpful to us. For example, you have third-party delivery services. You have local ones, you have large corporate ones. They all take a very different commission percentage. Some of them is high or higher than 30%, and others a much lower percentage. So really educating our guests on the fact that we really appreciate your orders. We love every single one of them. But when you order from X company, they take 33% of every order. But if you order from Y company, they only take 10%. And if you call us, they take nothing. And our guests seemed to be very excited about that. They really wanted to know how to help. And while we didn't see a change in revenue numbers, we saw a shift in how people were ordering through different platforms. So that was very helpful.
Oh, that's great. I think you've mentioned education multiple times in this interview. And I think that's an incredible thing not everybody thinks about how can I educate my customer on what they should expect from me, on what they can, get from me, and how they should interact with me. I think that's an awesome thing to think about.
It's huge. It's critical. And just apart from education, it really boils down to communication. as long as there's an open line of communication. I say that with my staff, I say that with my guests, I
Yep.
say that with my partner, Brian. As long as we're all communicating, everything's going to be great.
Yep. Was there any particular campaigns or, images or content that really stood out and kind of helped you in the long run?
I will say that I I've followed a lot of other small businesses, not just in Troy, but around the surrounding cities in the Capital District, and also outside of our states.
Mm-hmm.
I do that anyways because I love consuming food and beverage content and
Yep.
seeing what everybody in the industry is doing. But it was also helpful to see the engagement that other people were getting from similar posts and seeing how we can kind of tweak our own, photos and messaging and things like that in order to be most effective. I reached out to a lot of board game cafe owners, and a lot reached out to me as well. There's a really great Facebook group that we're all a part of,
Mm-hmm.
because, as I said, there's no reason why a board game cafe should be surviving right now. And a lot of them are not. A lot of them are closing around the country, which is very sad.
Mm-hmm.
But we've kind of banded together in order to offer everyone, what successes are working
Yes.
for us, what campaigns just totally flopped and don't even bother, and really kind of creating a support network in that aspect. We've also collaborated with a lot of other small businesses downtown throughout the shutdown as well. Superior Merch in particular has been incredible. They have a wonderful, incredible loyal guest following, and have been gracious enough to keep ordering wholesale pastries from us, which is great because that's added revenue. We just drop it off. They take care of the sale and the wrapping it up to go. And it also gets our name out there to another group of guests that we might not otherwise have interacted with. Right now, what's important is everybody feels alone right now, but nobody is alone. It's just a matter of reaching out to one another. And I think once we realize that and we kind of step outside of our comfort zone, you don't need to sit down and have a socially distanced cup of coffee with someone, but you can have an interaction like this, right? This human interaction. I'm going to have a beautiful social high all day because I talk to someone face to face without actually, talking face to face.
Yeah, it's, the community during this whole time, I feel like Troy has blossomed in that way. Troy has shown that it is together and that we're working alongside one another to get everyone through. And we are lucky actually that, we haven't had too many businesses that have had to close at this point. So, and I think that is in part to just the community that we have here and the ability to support one another.
Absolutely. Troy has handled all of this very well. I'm actually very, very proud of Troy and very proud of New York State. I have other small business owners in other states, friends and family, and I fear for them all. And I feel I have so much more confidence being located in Troy and knowing that everyone else around me is being safe and handling things correctly.
Yeah. So now, but also before, did you have a social media strategy? Something that you planned out, maybe a content calendar, anything like that, that kind of helped you through kind of what was going on with COVID or even before COVID?
So I'm a small business owner. Probably many other people watching this will be as well. And social media is super important and absolutely should be on a schedule. And I'm sure that other people are doing it much better than I am and much more consistent than I am. I struggle a lot as a small business owner with finding the time in order to do so, which is silly because I spend 16 hours a day here and I'm constantly immersed by it. And I over obsess over getting that really perfect picture and that perfect messaging, and it'll take 45 minutes to get that perfect thing, and I can't always carve out 45 minutes, but I have to constantly remind myself that It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be there.
Yeah.
You need to keep showing up in people's feed. You need to keep showing up in their algorithms. You need to be there, or else you don't exist to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's much easier for someone to forget about a small business, especially with all of this going on, if they only see you post once a week, than if they see you post every single day. They're not going to get sick of it. If they do, they're going to swipe right past it. But guess what? They have already absorbed that content that you put out there to them.
Yep.
So I think a lot of people worry about oversaturating their guests and community and don't want to come off as annoying or sales pitchy. It's not. You're taking your portion of the ad space that is in the universe and getting your content out there. So I would like to say that I have a wonderful, just chef kiss structured system and content calendar, and I really don't. It kind of happens whenever I have the time, whenever I see something that I think our guests might really be inspired by or excited about, and get them to come in and place an order. But I do try to vary it up. So I do try to not post back-to-back food, or beverage, or board game, trying to keep it a good mix of the people that work here, the people who are the brand, who are Bard and Baker. The board games, obviously, you can't come in and play them yet, but we want you to know that they still exist and they will exist. And then the food and drinks that we're constantly featuring, whether it's a regular menu item or a special that we're running. Just whenever we can get content out there, people are excited about it. They comment, they engage, they absorb it. I need to get better about it. And I know a lot of other people probably feel the same way, but just getting it out there is a lot better than not.
Yeah, I think, sometimes it just falls off the list, right? When you have so many different things that are on your plate, it's hard to focus on it, when really that's the way that you're advertising that you're there and that you're continuing on. It's interesting to, think about it as different themes, so that when you see that theme occurring in real life, right, you can be like, oh, I can take a picture of that, right? I think that's a good way too of kind of breaking it up, and it automatically triggers your brain every time you see something that might work with that.
Exactly. That's a really good way to do it too, is constantly create content for yourself, snap those photos, have a notebook where you write down witty taglines or things so you don't forget, and you can come back to it later when you do have that time. I know a lot of other people use the scheduling options for social media. It's definitely something that I used before COVID, but during COVID, I am mostly the labor in the kitchen and bottling cocktails and payroll and all that other fun stuff.
And everything is changing so quickly too at this time that you don't know what it's going to look like a week from now.
Exactly. We have no idea. We have no idea if we're going to open tomorrow, if we're going to open in a month, in a year. Yeah. We're just kind of taking it day by day.
Definitely. You talked a little bit about analyzing some of your content and just understanding what your customers like, what they dislike. Can you talk a little bit about how you do that? What strategies you have around analyzing?
Absolutely. As someone who loves hospitality, I love the human connection aspect of it. So I love it when the posts get engagement from people, comments, likes, shares. They'll then come in and get something, take a picture and tag us. I really look for those cues to see what's working well for us. Facebook and Instagram and Twitter all have really good analytic systems that as a business you can really harness and utilize. I will say that one of the best bang for your buck sponsoring advertisement opportunities right now is Facebook. You can really target that specific demographic that you're trying to reach. Right now, it might be literally everyone. And if that's the case, they can kind of do the targeting for you. But if you know that you want to target, 18 to 24, 60% male, 40% female, you can really tailor it to be very highly specific to your industry and your product.
Definitely.
But I will say one thing that is really important is when guests are engaging with your content, engage back with them.
Definitely.
They want to feel heard, whether it's just liking their comment of saying, wow, that looks tasty, or we miss you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's a private message, they want answers. They want to feel that, you know, their businesses that they are supporting and loving are there for them as well. So really, that's most of pre-COVID. I analyzed a lot of the posts that we're doing particularly well. During it, I've really been focused on just getting back to people, constantly talking with them, creating that communication line. If they're commenting, if they're sending messages, making sure that it's tied to my personal cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
It's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting having to be on 24/7 because everybody's lives are different, right? Some
Yep.
people are working late at night, some people are working in the morning, some are, you know, midday, some people are not working at all. But you really have to be there for everyone's potential timeline.
Yep.
And it's exhausting, but it is crucially important and is going a long way right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a specific way to track and analyze that, but I will say that the more connections that I have with people as Bard & Baker, the more it translates into additional follows and likes and things of that nature. So I will go back. I will definitely go back post-COVID to taking a deeper dive into social media and analytics and looking at what is beneficial and seeing what my reach is. But right now it's more of just a hard focus on getting the content out there and connecting with people.
So you find that connecting with people really helps you to grow your audience? Are
Absolutely.
there other strategies that you use to try to build the people who are going to consistently follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. I will say too, a lot of the social media platforms will work different for different businesses.
Yep.
For example, Facebook, we get a lot of similar interaction between Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is more comment driven and Instagram is more like driven, and we get more responses to stories on Instagram. Twitter, we get very little. Twitter does really nothing for our business model, but we have a presence there just so people know that we exist.
Yep.
What's really important is making sure that when you are posting to each of these, you're posting individually. People are more likely to engage with a post that has a photo and content as opposed to a link that they have to click on right now. But in regards to specific strategy for growing, like I had mentioned before, collaborations with other businesses is very important for us right now because those businesses have worked very hard to get their guest following, and they might not have otherwise visited us. So at least getting us in their mind is incredibly important. The most important thing that you can do is word of mouth advertising. So that can come from posts, that can come from just a really good conversation on a phone call, interacting with people, but you want people to say, you know, oh, I had a really great bubble tea at Bard & Baker, and someone go, well, what's Bard & Baker? Oh, it's this board game cafe that I support. Oh, really? And then that gets people to come organically, and you get more followers and engagement from that.
So I mean, you tend to use different platforms, right, for different things. You said, you know, Facebook and Instagram are pretty similar, but you use them in different ways. Is there, you know, I guess for food, it makes sense to use Instagram because it's a very visual thing. Is there any other things like that that you keep in mind when you're using kind of different content on the different spaces or platforms?
Definitely. I will say that Facebook is great for getting information out there, and Instagram is great for getting photos out there. Everybody loves a good photo on Facebook as well, but people are regularly checking Facebook. So if you're going to be closed for a day that you normally aren't, if you're having some equipment issues and you're going to open a little bit later, or you've got this really awesome special that you want to tell people about, a quick post to Facebook is going to reach your guests a lot more quickly than if you do a post on Instagram. Instagram stories right now have a really great algorithm. if people are following you and constantly clicking on your stories and liking your posts, which are your core guests that you really do want to focus on, the more stories that you put out there, the more it's going to recommend that those guests view your stories. So those really quick bits of information are really crucially important right now, almost more important than, you know, a big, long, lengthy post about some new thing that you're doing. They want to see little quick behind the scenes things.
I think you broke up a little bit, unfortunately, but I think you're giving us some really amazing information. So thank you so much. Um, I don't know what's going on with the internet right now,
Oh no.
but I guess anything that we should go over before we end up here today.
I think we hit a lot of it.
See if I can hear
I mean,
you.
just to kind of,
Perfect.
can you hear me okay?
I'm going to pause the recording and then we can try to get back into it in 1 second.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I think we're back.
Wonderful.
So we had talked a little bit about, you know, what platforms are good for different spaces and content and things. Can you just wrap that up a little bit? I think I caught part of it, but not all of it.
Yes, absolutely. So it's really important to know what your target market is for the specific guests that you're trying to connect with. Each one of those age groups use a different platform more exclusively than another one. You've got your Twitter, you've got Facebook and Instagram, which are kind of your predominant social media platforms right now that people are using. Facebook is really great for getting out quick bits of content, getting out notifications, letting people know if you're going to be closed for one day that you normally aren't, for letting them know if you're going to open a little bit later, maybe there's some equipment issues that are happening, or if you are just like really running some really cool specials that you want people to know about immediately. That content goes out there and gets pretty quickly to the guest. Whereas if you are creating a Instagram post, you kind of have to wait for people to kind of scroll through and get to that content amidst everyone else that they are following. But Instagram right now has a really great algorithm for stories. So the more that you are putting content out there that people are engaging with, whether it's posts or stories, the more that they engage with your content, the more Instagram recommends your account for them for future stories and posts as well. So if you are able to spend a few minutes a day just putting up 5 or 6 stories with kind of behind the scenes or things that you're running, things that you're excited about, or just information for guests, they're very easily going to be able to consume that quickly and effortlessly while they're just kind of scrolling through their phone, as opposed to taking a long time to create a very specific post that hoping that people will eventually get to. So right now, I think I have found that people are craving a lot of more condensed content, stuff that's easily absorbed. They don't need to spend a long time reading because they're self-educating in other aspects of their life right now. They just want quick content to know which businesses align with their values and their views and are creating things that they're interested in consuming.
Definitely. I think it's, you know, it's hard sometimes when you're doing so many different things to think about like, oh, I got to post this, I have to post that, I have to post that. But the stories, I mean, they're there for 24 hours and they go away. And if you want to save them, you can. So it's a nice way to just tell people what you're up to, get quick information to them. And I'm glad that you're using stories a lot. I think it's important to keep doing that. And I'm, you know, seeing a lot of businesses that are doing that right now. So that's great.
It's been crucial to the success of a lot of businesses right now, just getting social media content out there. Right now, if people don't see you on their phone, they don't see you at all because they're not coming out, they're not venturing outside of their homes. So you need to stay relevant in their minds for them to really care about you. And little stories like that are just crucial in making sure that they remember you during and when all this is through.
Yeah. Well, Charlotte, I really appreciate your time today. I know you have a lot going on, so I appreciate you taking some moments to really share what you're up to and give us a little insight into how you manage your social media and kind of plan for the future. And wishing you all the best. I know right now is really stressful, but I know Troy is again. We're working together, and it's really amazing that you're here to tell us what you're up to, so that you can help other businesses figure out what their strategy could be as well.
Absolutely. And for anyone who is watching this, small business owner, guest, whoever, if you need somebody to talk to, please reach out to me. It's really lonely for everyone right now, but you are not alone. I will gladly carve 2 minutes out of my day to talk to somebody via email or Facebook or Instagram, just to have that human connection. My email is bardenbaker@gmail.com. If you want to talk further about social media or collaborating or really anything that's related to COVID, whether it's food and beverage or not, I'm happy to provide any guidance or feedback of what has worked and what hasn't worked for us, or even just to chat and talk about how the world is on fire, because sometimes we need people that we can talk to about that as well. And I will gladly be that person, so please reach out.
Well, thank you. And if anybody needs anything from the Troy bid as well, we are working through some different programming and things to try to bring people downtown in safe ways. So definitely reach out if you're looking to get, listings on some of our programs and all that. But thank you again so much. Is there anything that you feel like need to add in here that we may have missed? I feel like we covered a whole lot today.
We covered so much content. If I spent this amount of time on social media each
Right.
day, I'd be golden. So
Right.
this is a good reminder for me that I can carve out the time and I need to do it more consistently. I think we covered pretty much everything that I was hoping to talk to people about. But again, if anyone has any further questions, please reach out. Apart from that, thank you so much, Katie. This is really exciting to still be able to connect with people, even while we're doing our own little, separate things.
Yep. Yeah, it's nice to be able to have a conversation and interact with one another. So again, thank you so much. We'll be seeing you again very soon. I'm looking forward to a more full opening for you at some point. But in the meantime, takeout is an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, very helpful to us. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.